Welcome to another edition of What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. On this week's program, 7 garage fires in Barrie since the start of the year, millions of dollars in damage. What's going on and how can you keep it from happening to you? And we go further with your safety, getting tips ahead of Emergency Preparedness Week. The Barrie Farmers Market has teamed up with Barrie Police and the Barrie Public Library on a new mental health awareness initiative. And would you believe we need to have a chat with our grandparents about safe sex? Yeah, you do. But first, we as a nation are mourning the loss of an icon, a national treasure. Singer and songwriter Gordon Lightfoot died this week at age 84. Born in Orillia, known around the world, his songs covered by just about everyone. Elvis, Streisand, Belafonte, and so many others. He was a frequent performer at the Mariposa Folk Festival in Orillia. The festival's Pam Carter remembers how humble and courteous he was. She's with Barrie 360's Ian MacLennan.
Your relationship with Gordon Lightfoot, how far does it go back?
I've been involved with Mariposa for about 14 years, so I've known Gord, since those first days when I became involved. At some points he was to come and perform on stage, and other times he would just show up with guitar in hand, and it was always a treat to greet him and chat with and visit with him.
So no invitation needed. If Gord was there, Gord got a stage.
If Gord was there, Gord got a stage. If he was invited to perform, he'd show up with a driver in a Lincoln Town car. If he was coming on his own, it was just whatever car he happened to be driving at the time, and then he'd pull, and it's like, hey, there's Gord. And the ripple would go out across the audience. Gord's here, I wonder if he'll perform. And not only through the audience, the ripple went out in the green room where all the artists were commingling. He was an icon in the industry, and they were in awe of his, being in his presence, and just the work that he's done over his lifespan just stood him out with our artists.
And the relationship between Mariposa and Gord, for people who aren't familiar.
Yeah, Gord applied for the first Mariposa Folk Festival in 1961, and he was advised at that time he was too commercial and sounded too much like the Everly Brothers. And on stage last year, he related that story, and he said, that can't be all bad, can it, being like the Everly Brothers? So he did perform, I believe, in 1964. But what was really, he's performed about easily 10 times since Mariposa's been back in Orillia. But the instrumental point there was Gord performed in 2000, the first year Mariposa came back to Orillia after a long hiatus and traveling around the province. And having Gord on the bill ensured Mariposa's success for its first festival back in Orillia. He performed without a fee. We paid his band, but he performed without a fee. And that just set Mariposa on the path to success back in Orillia, and we haven't looked back since.
I mean, the tributes have come in from around the world, from the average person to celebrities. Just what I've read about Gordon Lightfoot, I think he'd almost feel uncomfortable with the attention.
I totally agree. My familiarity with Gord is his humbleness and his generosity. So when I say he shows up in his own car, and I have a picture of him at one time. He showed up, he was in the parking lot, and he's tuning his guitar in the rear of his car because he doesn't want to ask for a trailer or for a space to tune his guitar. That's just the kind of guy he was. I drove him around quite a bit last summer at the festival in the golf cart. He would stop. Patrons and fans would approach, and he would sign autographs. He was just very generous at this time and very humble.
And what about Mariposa this year? Will there be some tweaks now, or are you planning some sort of tribute, appreciating it's still early?
Yeah, I think there'll definitely be some tweaks. We'll just start working on that. We were busy last night, of course, paying tribute to Gord. And we're now working with the city of Orillia, who will also do a tribute to Gord, because certainly he's a hometown man, right? He's Orillia's own. So we're working with the city of Orillia, and then we'll get on to doing some programming for Mariposa. So you can absolutely expect to see something there.
Gordon Lightfoot collected 12 Juno Awards in his career, was nominated for Grammy Awards, and was inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. It's a junk room, a TV room, a smoking room, and it's become a dangerous room in Barrie. 7 garage fires in the city since the start of the year, 2 of them in the last week, more than $2 million in damage. Deputy Fire Chief Carrie Clark sat down with our Will Konken about some of the factors leading to these fires and getting them in check.
Why are garages more susceptible to fires?
People's garages, generally attached when in the city, are used for such a multitude of things within your home, storage. People carve out a little space where they can have some private area from inside the house. A lot of people like to smoke in their garage because they're banned from smoking in their house. They store all their DIY stuff, so stuff coming out, stuff going in. And in some situations, people are amalgamating because of the cost of housing. So they're amalgamating families or groups, and no one likes to get rid of their stuff until they're in their space. So all of their stuff comes with them and the garage gets full.
I know a lot of people, maybe they have their clippings from outside or stuff, or lawn kind of extras that are in the bags and all that. Are those kind of the main things that can catch on fire, or cans of stain and stuff like that?
Our number one cause of fires right now this year has been smokers' materials, so improperly disposing of your cigarette butts or other smoking materials. So that's our number one cause at this point. So really you need to put them in metal containers, non-combustible containers that have sand or water. Make sure you don't butt it out in a planter or in the shrubbery around the house. That's also combustible. We do get those, when it stops raining out and it dries out a wee bit, we'll start to see some of those fires as well. A cigarette butt can smolder for approximately 2 to 3 hours and can still be a competent ignition source in that time. 4 of our fires have been in the evening, 10, 11 o'clock. So you've just had that quick drag after supper time, just refresh yourself for the evening before you go to bed. Butt it out, and then 2 hours later, your garage is on fire.
To assess your garage, especially you were mentioning about a lot of clutter, everyone just putting all of their storage right in there. When someone, maybe to prevent these fires, to assess your garage, what's kind of the steps to kind of take? Should you make almost a pathway? What's the best for storing all of your stuff?
The best is to actually edit your stuff and don't store something that you haven't needed or aren't going to need. So move into your space, identify what's important to you, and then honestly move it along. So donate it, dispose of it, whatever those things are. We see a lot of fires where people have built mezzanines so that they can store all of the, their children's clothing. The child is 18 now, but they've got their baby clothes in a Tupperware container on a mezzanine. It's important stuff. The memories are there, but do you really need that particular item? The other thing is when a garage is attached to the house, the fire separations are very critical in between the two. But when people construct things to store more stuff, they damage the fire separation, which causes an opportunity for smoke and heat to more easily penetrate into the living space. If you're going to use your garage as a living space, clean it the same way you clean the inside of the house, right? And if there is a door that connects the garage to the house, make sure that door latches properly. Maybe even install a self-closer on it so that it will close behind you every time. And if you have a fire, if you notice a fire in your garage, make sure you keep all the doors closed, the one into the house and the big one in the front. Call 911. We're going to come to your address anyway. Do not open the doors because it will ventilate control itself, so it'll smolder. But if you open the doors and give it the oxygen, it's going to burn, and it's going to burn faster and hotter without opportunity for extinguishment.
And homeowners, they have smoke alarms in their home, but why not in the garage at all?
Smoke alarms are engineered for living spaces. So the temperature extremes, the humidity extremes, the things that people normally do in their garage, or in some cases normally do in their garage, which causes dust and debris to gather in the smoke alarm, would cause it to malfunction. So you could install a heat detector and wire it into your house. That's one way. Or sprinklers are the fastest, most efficient way. So if there was an opportunity to sprinkler your house and your garage, That would be the fastest water.
If people don't already have a plan of attack when a fire occurs, should they create almost like another one for the garage itself, or should that also be with it? And if a fire happens in their household, they're ready to go.
Because the fire can grow in the garage a lot faster undetected, your home escape plan is very critical, because quite often a bedroom or a living space is directly over the garage or directly attached to the garage. So in making sure that everyone gets out immediately on detection of the fire is critical. Don't stop and get your stuff. Don't stop for anything. Get out of the house. Get to the front yard. Make sure someone's calling 911. When you have garage fires, they burn so hot because we keep all of our stuff in the garage. Anything that is too grubby for the house is stored in the garage, right? So we've got aerosols, we've got fuel containers, we've got spray bombs, all the extra clothes, the boxes, the wood, the fuel load in there is significant, and the heat release rate of the fuel that's in there is significant.
Education is the biggest.
Absolutely. So when you have a chance, tidy your stuff, make sure there's a path, keep all of the combustibles away from the things that get hot. If you have scooters or e-bikes or battery-operated anything, make sure the charging station is well away from anything that's combustible. If you smoke in your garage, butt out properly in a non-combustible and clean that non-combustible container on the regular as well. Because if they fall out and onto the floor, you've defeated the whole purpose.
For more on fire prevention, log on to barrie.ca/fire. The first outdoor Barrie Farmers Market of 2023 is this Saturday. It will feature not just food vendors, but a partnership between the market, Barrie Police, and the Barrie Public Library to promote mental health initiatives in the city. Here again is Ian MacLennan with the market's Jamie Grant and Sergeant Trevor Marsh of the Barrie Police Service.
Why this partnership? People think the farmers market, they're there, to buy things and, items. Why mental health?
Well, actually, the farmers market, part of our mandate is to partner with community groups and to offer a community space. So what I really liked about this initiative was that it was a community of care initiative and bringing all of these services together in one space. I don't really think I've seen that happen before. And I think it's going to be amazing as a resource for the public to come out and see what they can do to help for their mental health.
Any idea on how many vendors you will have and, what will be going on that day specifically?
Absolutely. I have approximately 60 vendors on the Barrie Farmers Market side, so all their local farms and bakers and things. But then on the agency side, I think we're looking at about 52 tables currently.
And Barrie Police, what's their role in Mental Health Awareness Week, but specifically at the event itself at the Farmers Market?
Often police come into contact with members of the community from all walks of life and require any number of supports. So we find ourselves routinely in a position to offer these individuals the appropriate agencies. That's why it's equally important that all stakeholders within the community, including those in emergency services, to have this awareness and also be able to engage in this sort of networking opportunity. Now, police are not specialists in this area of mental health. We rely heavily on the experience, knowledge, and support available within the community to help provide assistance, support, and guidance from the most appropriate service provider.
And Barrie Police have been proactive, too, with Canadian Mental Health when you go out to certain calls that you sometimes do have somebody who's a trained specialist in mental health that can assist the police. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We have two response models, one being COAST, our Crisis Outreach and Response Team, and MCERT, which is the Mobile Crisis Response Team. And they partner with both CMHA, and MCERT is with RVH.
And what sort of training, too, do Barrie Police Service involve themselves with in terms of, mental health and, learning about, struggles that people do have? I mean, you deal with that every day, your service.
Yes. So there's various training opportunities for officers, and we're always in the process of ensuring that frontline officers in particular have CIT training, that critical incident training, and that provides them with some of the tools necessary to carry out their everyday roles and interactions that they're going to have or come into contact with community members.
And some of the agencies that you know of that will be participating at at this event at the Farmers Market?
Well, we have quite an extensive list, all the way from RVH to the CMHC to having the Alzheimer's Society, almost all agencies that have anything to do with wellness or mental health or addiction will be present that day. So if you have somebody in your household or in your circle that is suffering, you can find those agencies there and talk directly to them and find out what resources are available for either yourself or someone that you care about.
As always, the Farmers Market runs till noon on Saturday on Mulcaster Street outside Barrie City Hall. What Barrie's Talking About is a weekly podcast featuring the best Barrie has to offer and more. We've covered a lot of ground since we began in mid-July. Tips to guard against the scams we've been inundated with. Learned about the local Camp Hill Foundation, which works with adults who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. And we got caught up with Innisfil singer-songwriter Kyle Walkup. You can get caught up and make it easy to keep up in the future by subscribing to What Barrie's Talking About through any streaming service. Still to come on What Barrie's Talking About, getting ready for another McHappy Day, having the sex chat with your grandparents, and making sure you're prepared for any emergency. Now this.
Our community rocks.
It's a well-known fact blood transfusion saves lives. It's also a well-known fact that the world relies on voluntary unpaid donations to fill the need for blood. The need for blood never ends. Canadian Blood Services in Barrie is calling on you to help save a life. Please consider donating today. Appointments are mandatory and must be booked in advance. Book today at blood.ca through the Give Blood app or by calling 1-888-2-DONATE.
Our community rocks on Barrie's Rock Station. Rock 95.
This is What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. Big doings next week at McDonald's. The annual McHappy Day, raising funds for Ronald McDonald houses across the country, as well as local charities. In Barrie, that would be the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit at RVH. Dale and Charlie from Cool Mornings had a fun chat about it with Jason O'Neill and Trevor McKee from McDonald's in Barrie and Pam Ross from the RVH Foundation.
You know, last year, McHappy Day happened, but it was still in a smaller scale. Like, we weren't in the store, you know, helping serve and being a part of it because we still weren't allowed, really. Right. So this year, like, I get to come
We're back, baby.
I get to serve the fries.
100%.
I can't promise that I might not take one as okay, no.
Quality control.
Right? Yeah, for that reason. Anyway, go on.
Well, we're back at it again, and it's been 46 years.
Wow.
And we've raised millions and millions of dollars for children in need in our community. We're just so delighted to be able to give back to our community and help children in need.
Now, this year, of course, there's always not only Ronald McDonald House attached to McHappy Day, as we all know, but there's always another component to the charity aspect of this, and that's why you're in here this morning, Pam.
That's right. We are so proud and grateful for the fact that this will be the 9th year that McHappy Day has benefited RVH and our tiniest, weest, sickest patients in our NICU. McHappy Day has raised almost $250,000 for RVH over those 9 years, and we are super grateful for that support over all that time.
Cool. So give us the specifics, the dates, times, and the actual items that we should be focusing on.
Yeah, so Wednesday, May 10th, come on out all day long, and a portion of all items will be donated to the Great Church. All items.
So before it used to be like coffees or just like Big Mac, but you're just going the whole menu. Amazing.
The whole menu. Okay. And if you
even
come
the
in...
pizza?
Well,
I'm working on it. I'm trying.
Never say never. Charlie, never say never.
She's dying to have the pizza back.
And come out. If you can't make it on the day, come out before. Make a donation. You can buy a heart. You can buy socks.
Right. I love the socks.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
That's when my kids actually get new socks. I wait till McHappy Day and I buy like 10 pairs and that's their socks for the year.
Really?
Yeah. Because not only is it good, and they're good quality, and they're cute, and then my kids don't lose them.
You're going to have to start coming up with new McDonald's branded gear so that she can outfit her kids totally.
Yes, please.
It's like next year we've got a pullover coming next year, some branded shorts. That's awesome, right?
Yeah, some shoes.
You can also go online, and there's a Peace Collection that's a Canadian company that is making vintage McDonald's hoodies and shirts. And you go online and buy those.
Except they're always sold out.
Well. This year we won't sell out. We've got a lot more. Last year they were very, very hot, but there's hoodies and Grimace and
see, if I put,
Mary McCheese.
If I put a purple hoodie on, I kind of look like Grimace. I've got the shape.
And this is why you got to come out on May 10th to support McHappy Day to see that.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Dale will be Grimace on McHappy Day.
Wow. I love it. I love the fact that it's just going to be the whole menu this time around, and it's great for Ronald McDonald House and also for the NICU over at RVH, which we're all really, we're very excited about all the work you're doing there with that. So thank you, everybody, for coming in. Jason, Trevor, Pam, it's wonderful, and we look forward to May the 10th for McHappy Day.
This is what Barrie's talking about from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely, joined by Colleen Simpson, the manager of 911 and emergency planning for the county of Simcoe. Next week is Emergency Preparedness Week. You and I get together every year and give people all kinds of wonderful knowledge about getting prepared for every possible emergency. Is it working? Are they getting the message? Are they getting prepared?
Thanks, Dan. I'd like to think they are. Emergency preparedness starts at home, so get yourselves ready, have a plan, have an emergency preparedness kit for at least 72 hours, more if you can.
What do we need to put in it for this time of year?
For this time, we'd want some foods that you'll actually eat, but non-perishable foods, so canned and dried items. And then to prepare them, you need a can opener, a pot, things like that. You want 4 liters of water per person per day. Maybe some games for your kids, games for everyone. Have a first aid kit available. Have some cash on hand and a copy of your prescriptions in case you run out and you need to refill them.
In the car, half tank of gas anyway. I never let mine get below half a tank.
You never know when you'll be stuck on the highway, or if there's a power outage, you may not be able to pump gas in your tank. It's also a good idea to carry cash in your car in case you're faced with an emergency or an outage like we did last summer with the Rogers outage.
Exactly. I was going to bring that up. That was huge, and it impacted a lot of people for a couple, 3 days in some cases before everybody was back up and running. But you don't realize what impact something like that has until it happens, and it was huge.
It's right. And people that were on another service like Bell didn't experience the same impact, but it affected a huge amount of people. They had no internet, which is fine for if you don't want to surf the net. But if you're at work and you rely on the internet for your job, it can have some critical impacts. So having a backup in place is critical, especially for your workplace. Having alternate methods of doing your work, like paper copies of forms or processes, and having good training available so you know what to do when there's an outage.
Along that same line, I drove down to Waterloo a couple of weeks ago for a seminar, and I like taking the back roads. I don't like taking the main highways. It's just not a pleasurable drive for me. But I was thinking as I'm driving, because I've got, Google Maps and Apple Maps, and what if something happens and I can't access that, and I'm in the middle of nowhere? We should have a paper map still in the car, shouldn't we?
I still have a paper map, the map book in my car. You should also know where you are at all times in case you do have to call 911. If you're not sure where you are, that 911 service may help you. Definitely a good practice to get into is to maybe map out your route before you go and then use your electronic mapping as a backup or at the time of your drive.
All right. Some individual emergencies that we talk about every year and give advice. And one of the things that we worry about in this area coming up to that season is tornadoes. And we talk every year about being prepared, what you should and shouldn't do. So lead us through that.
There are, on average, 12 tornadoes every year in Ontario alone. So we're in an area that we get these, probably one per year in the last 10 years, on average. Not all of them affect us. Some are out in forests or in the fields, but we want to be prepared for tornadoes. So if there is a tornado warning or you think you see a tornado, get inside a sturdy building, go into the interior of the building, and if that's not possible, go into a room that has no windows. If that's still not possible, get under a table or something, a piece of furniture that's solid. If you are outdoors and that's not an option, stay away from trees or power lines or bridges. Lie face down wherever you are, but the lowest spot possible, like a ditch, and then cover your head with your hands.
Some people still have a problem with this, though, like laying down in a ditch in a tornado, but it's actually considered one of the safest spots you can be outdoors.
Feels counterintuitive, but you want to be at the lowest point because the tornado will and flying debris will hit whatever is in its path. So you want to be below that as much as possible.
And you mentioned stay away from bridges. For a long time, people said get under a bridge, and now we're saying no.
Yeah, for some reason, the wind likes to collect items and debris and kind of circle it under the bridge. So you might be right in the path of that flying debris. So stay away from bridges. Having an emergency plan is very, very important for the entire family. That's right. You want to know where to go if you have to leave the house immediately. So practice it with your family. It can be somewhere like a nearby tree. It can be a neighbor's house. It can be a library or some public facility, but you want to know where to go and you want your family to know where to meet you. From tornadoes to thunder and lightning storms. And people still love thunderstorms. They like to get out and watch them, but they shouldn't be doing that, should they? I love to watch them too, but I watch them from inside my house. Take shelter in any kind of building you can. And again, same as tornadoes, you want to stay away from the windows actually and get indoors inside the building. Stay away from doors, windows, fireplaces, and electrical appliances. If you're outside, get into a building or a vehicle as soon as possible. And if that's not an option, go low and stay as low as possible like you do in a tornado. Power outages, what are some do's and don'ts? Ensure you have some working flashlights with batteries or wind-up flashlights in your house. Candles, preferably now the battery-operated ones because they are much safer. Always have your smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, of course, installed, but you want them to have backup battery options as well, so they'll work during a power outage. Keep a fire extinguisher in your home and have a backup generator if you can. It's not always an option, but if you do have a backup generator, just have enough fuel to fuel it for a few days. Something new you wanted to talk about this year, cybersecurity. That's right. There has been a huge increase of cyber attacks, even just since the pandemic. So the last few years, we've seen an increase in these attacks. With your computers, use smart passwords. I even use a passphrase. So it's a few words strung together with a number. Disable features you don't use on your phone, like GPS or Bluetooth, and try not to use public Wi-Fi. Maintain up-to-date software, and don't use the Remember Me function on your computer because it'll save your passwords somewhere on your computer. Back up your devices regularly, and another idea is to save important documents on a disk or a thumb drive so you have them in case of emergency, and then store them somewhere else, like your workplace or a cottage or somewhere else. So if they are destroyed in a fire, at least you have an alternate copy somewhere. You want those documents like insurance, passports, anything that you might need when your documents are gone. Of course, all this information readily available on the County of Simcoe website. That's right, simcoe.ca/be prepared. You'll find lots of tips and tricks there. Time to have the safe sex chat with your grandparents. But it's true. Sexually transmitted infections among Canadians over the age of 60 have increased 240%. Remember the candy jar your grandparents had when you were a kid? Well, Gems Condoms has introduced what it calls f***ing old candies to help get the conversation started. Jane Johansson, youngest daughter of Sue Johansson, she of the Sex with Sue shows, is helping to spread the word. She's with our MJ.
This product, it's really interesting. I mean, it's definitely not something new, but the marketing behind it is really something that people probably don't think about, and that is geared towards our seniors.
These two women, Whitney and Yasmin, they started this company in 2021, and it's a company that is producing a product, condoms, through a company called Gems. Their company, and they wanted to kind of create a normalized sex and condom use. And so they've created this product that has new, interesting packaging and want to encourage people to start using it regardless of your age because of the sexually transmitted diseases that have skyrocketed in amongst our seniors as of late.
Do you have any stats or whatever when it comes to our seniors?
Yeah, so apparently the stats on seniors getting chlamydia is way above anybody else. Chlamydia is up like 267%, syphilis is up 340%, and gonorrhea 388%. And those numbers are huge. And these are senior citizens. These are people who are over 65, and that is a startling number.
Why do you think the number is specifically high in this demographic?
I have a feeling that because they have more time on their hands, they might be recently widowed or become single later in life, and so now they're exploring the possibilities of having intimacy again and still wanting to remain sexually active. Some of them might be in retirement homes where you're living in closer quarters, so your social group has extended and you're able to meet more people in kind of comfortable situations. And also, I think they're not taking preventative cautions because they're like, well, I'm not going to get pregnant now, so we don't have to use condoms, or we don't have to use any kind of birth control. So condoms goes in with that, and unfortunately, because of that, and because of possibly an unawareness of the situation, because it can be very asymptomatic, a lot of them, it remains untested, and they continue to be sexually active.
Because seniors tend to have weakened immune systems and other problems, would it create even more potential health issues for them in the long run?
I think it's just because it goes undetected. So I think we need to encourage them not only to use condoms, but also to get tested. So they need to realize that if they are going to be sexually active, that they need to take responsibility for that, or just to be encouraged to have some form of education around it. And I think that's where it comes to the grandchildren, or possibly their own kids, who would possibly introduce opening up the conversation around this.
And that's where this product is kind of fun. It's all centered around a hard candy.
That's correct. So they have packages of these hard candies, and they come in all different flavors. There's like bedroom berry and body banana, pleasurable pear, sensual strawberry, and the wrappers around these candies encourage conversation. So they have inside, they have, like the bedroom berry has safer sex with the partner, and so you unwrap the candy, and there's the the quote inside, and then you can actually start up a conversation with your grandparents while you're sharing around a box of candies, which is part of their product.
Now, switching gears a little bit, we know what it was like for us growing up with Sue. What was it like for you growing up with Sue as your mom? Did everybody know that this is your mom? Were they afraid to come to your house because she might talk to them? How did that work?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, MJ, because really it was the opposite. I was not comfortable talking to my own mother about sex and sexual health and sexuality, so I didn't really. The door was always open. She was always amenable to, chatting with me about sex and birth control and stuff like that. But I didn't want to hear about it from my mom, and it didn't matter who she was. I didn't care. It was my mom, and it was like, at the time, it was, ooh, gross. So, but what was interesting was that my friends did want to talk to my mom about it. So they were not shy and running away. If anything, my friends would come over, and then I would leave the room, and then they would be deep in conversation with my mom, whether it was my girlfriends or my boyfriends at the time. They were happy to sit in the kitchen with my mom, drinking tea and talking about all things sex.
Amazing.
Yeah. But what was great about it was that her talking about it and opening the door, even though I didn't want to talk about it with her, I knew I could if I wanted to. So I think that's the encouraging thing to take away from this for parents or from kids who want to educate their grandparents about using condoms, is that if once you open the door, then at least they know they can turn around and come back to you when they might be more comfortable talking about that subject.
That's a great way to say it. So just sort of like make yourself available. Eventually they'll come to you, right? Just, off the moment when they want to talk about it, maybe not at that second.
Yeah, I think if you make sex taboo and a subject that you can't talk about, then kids won't. But if you talk about it with your kids, or you're talking about it with your grandparents or your parents, and using humor and keeping it light, I think that was something that my mom was really extremely skilled at. Was if you use humor, you break the ice, and breaking the ice and then moving in with humor and comfort level, then you allow other people to relax and be comfortable with the topic. So if we can do that with our seniors, and if we can do it playfully through the suggestion of candy and the Gen condoms, then I think we might be able to encourage them to use them to keep themselves safe.
Would love to be a fly on the wall for that conversation. And that's our program for this week. Thanks to Ian, Will, MJ, Dale, and Charlie for their contributions this week, to Matt Ladder for sorting it all out technically, and to you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About, rate it, review it. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on Facebook and Twitter at Barrie360 and on our website, Barrie360.com. I'm Dan Blakely. Hope you'll join us again next week.